Welcome back everyone, it is Aric from Rare Candy, and today we are back checking out another Astral Radiance deck profile, breaking down my current list for the new Origin Forme Palkia VSTAR. Definitely, I think, among one of the top new V-Stars that we're going to be getting in this new set. And I have to say, from my testing so far, this deck has been performing pretty well and might live up to the hype, dare I say. I know Water has a couple of good attackers already out there, like Ice Rider and Suicune V, but Palkia I definitely think could give them a run for their money. This is my current list I'm working with, as I said, but if you guys are hungry for some more Palkia content after this video is over, I did drop a bonus article on Patreon detailing some additional deck building options and tech cards you could potentially play in your list. So if you guys want to check that out and help support the channel, I will have a link down below in the description. But let's check out this list. Up first, we have 4 copies of Origin Forme Palkia V. This card's, I think, pretty unimpressive all around. Its first attack for a water energy does let you get a stadium card out of deck, and then its other attack for 2 water and a colorist is 200 and you can't attack next turn. Not a particularly great attack. We normally honestly never want 3 energy on a Palkia anyways, so more than likely if we ever do use this thing, it will be for this first attack. But more importantly, of course, we have 3 copies of Palkia VSTAR, 280 HP, so right up there with things like Arceus VSTAR for having the most HP in the game. And it just has 1 attack here for 2 water energy to 60 plus 20 more for each bench Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's. So yes, this is the same attack on Suicune V, but now it's on a Pokemon with a lot more HP and higher base damage to boot. So if both players do have a full bench, Palkia is going to cap out at 260 damage, which is pretty decent already, but from there all you have to do is slam down a choice bell and now you're suddenly one-shotting opposing Pokemon V-Star. A lot of decks right now do operate with a pretty full bench, so Palkia definitely is going to be able to capitalize on that and punish those decks for having to bench so many support Pokemon like those Inteleons, those Burrells, those Crobat Vs, etc. And its V-Star power definitely pretty solid as well. You get to attach up to 3 water energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. So this basically pretty much always ensures that even if you whiff an energy attachment at some point, you can always cheat enough energy into play with this attack to make sure you can get up and running. But moving on to our support Pokemon, we are going to be playing the Inteleon engine in this deck, so we do need 4 copies of Sobble here. And of course we are playing the Rapid Strike one just because of that keep calling attack. We also of course do have 4 copies of Drue to search out a trainer card out of our deck whenever we evolve into it. So as with most decks with the Inteleon engine, this guy's gonna kind of be the backbone of getting our deck set up. It's gonna be able to search out our supporters, ways to get energy, Pokemon, etc. Of course though, we do have 1 copy of the Inteleon that does the same thing, but allows you to get 2 trainer cards. And actually sometimes Aqua Bullet, not an awful attack, especially since we can accelerate energy into play with Palkia here. For water and color, so just as 120 with a 20 damage snipe as well. And to round out this Inteleon engine, of course, we have 2 copies of the quick shooting Rapid Strike Inteleon here as well. That allows us to place 2 damage counters as its ability. So when you are going against Pokemon V Max, this ability can definitely help fix your math for you to take those big one-shots. Or if your opponent is trying to play around your attack, this is just another way you can force that damage a little bit higher. But up next from there, we have another pretty important new card. That is going to be the new Radiant Greninja here. One of these new Radiant Pokemon that you can only have 1 of in your deck, but this thing has a fantastic ability. You get to discard an energy from hand, then draw 2 cards. So obviously we can pitch away water energy to get back out with our V-Star, or if we want to use something like Melanie, that will help that as well. And just in general, this deck focuses more on searching options rather than draw options. So having a way at drawing some additional cards in a turn definitely can be nice, since we are more often than not just sort of searching out a single card or 2 at a time. And the last Pokemon in the list is going to be 1 copy of Manaphy here to protect our bench against things like Jolteon V Max. You know, we are weak to lightning, so we do need a little bit help against things like Jolteon. And of course too, it will stop those G Max rapid flow attacks from Urshifu as well. But getting into our supporters, definitely have an interesting supporter lineup here. Up first, we have 3 copies of the new Irida. I don't know how you pronounce this card just yet, honestly, but it's a new supporter that is kind of a throwback to the old Karina of the past, but this one allows you to get a water Pokemon and an item out of your deck. Between this card and our copies of the Inteleon engine, it's pretty easy to search anything we want in a given turn out of this deck. And again, thanks to cards like Radiant Greninja, we can sort of offset the lack of draw power of a card like this with that ability too. But we definitely still want to play other normal draw supporters. Up first, we do have 1 copy of Melanie. Since we are discarding water energy with this deck, we can attach a water energy from discard to one of our Pokemon V and draw 3 cards. I will say a lot of the time this ability on Palkia is going to sort of carry you throughout the game as it is, but for example, if you have already burned your ability and your only powered up attacker gets knocked out, you are still going to need the help of something like Melanie to set up your next Palkia. We also have one copy of Professor's Research to discard our hand and draw 7. And then we also have a couple of Disrupted Draw supporters too. Of course, we have one copy of Marnie to force our opponent down to a 4-card hand and we get 5. But then we also have the brand new Roxanne supporter that Astral Radiance is giving us. You can only play this if your opponent has taken 3 or more prizes, but both players shuffle their hands into their deck. You get 6 cards and your opponent only gets 2. So this is a very, very powerful card in the late game. And thanks to this Inteleon engine, we can pretty much search this thing out whenever we need to on the turn that we're looking for it. And especially when you combine this with some of the stadium cards that we're running too, you can really have some oppressive late game terms if you time this card right. And then to round out our supporters, we have 2 copies of Boss's Orders just to choose what we want to attack into. And going into our stadium cards, we actually have a few different ones we're playing. Up first, we do have one copy of Training Court. That's going to allow us to get a basic energy from discard back into our hand. So of course, we're pitching away energy with Greninjas. This will allow us to get them back and potentially reuse those energies over and over with this ability every turn. Up next from there though, we have one copy of Path to the Peak to shut off abilities for Pokemon with a rule box. So of course we are reliant on abilities ourselves, but once we pop that V-Star power, we don't really care about our abilities too much anymore. Now we do need to point out that Radiant Greninja is technically a rule box Pokemon, so you definitely have to make sure you time your Path at the right time, but Path is just still so strong at shutting off abilities on maybe opposing Palkia decks, on those Crobat Vs, opposing decks with Radiant Greninjas, etc. And then we're also playing one copy of the new Temple of Sinnoh. It turns all special energies in play into colorless energies that provide no other effect. We're a deck that runs exclusively basic energy, so we are completely unaffected by this, but this is actually an important card for certain matchups. Think of something like Mew V Max. If they have their Fusion Strike energies attached to them, we actually can't damage them with our Rapid Strike Inteleons, and we do need a way at shutting off those energies to be able to potentially do 290 with a Choice Belt, and then an Inteleon Snipe for that magic 310 number to knock out Mew. But even outside of that, plenty of decks are playing Double Turbo energy. This will neuter those cards into just being single colorless energies and can just be super annoying for those special energy based decks. Checking out our item cards, we have 4 copies of Quick Ball. Discard a card from your hand, search your deck for any basic Pokemon. Definitely our best form of basic search in the deck. And of course, we don't mind pitching away maybe some water energy since we can get those back out with Palkia VSTAR too. We also have 3 copies of Level Ball to find those Pokemon with 90 HP or less. So that's going to mean our Sobbles, Drizzles, and then the Manaphy for the matchups. We need those. But then from there, we also have 1 copy of Battle VIP Pass in the deck, which might seem a little bit random, but hear me out on this. Of course, Battle VIP Pass, you can only play this on the first turn of the game, but you search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, put them on your bench. Now, normally this would be a very annoying card to attempt to find on the first turn of the game, but now thanks to Irida, again, question mark, I don't know if that's the right name for this card, but thanks to Irida, we can now search this out on the first turn of the game if we are going second. And just in general, I really do think Irida enables a lot of really cool card inclusions for these Palkia decks. But again, more on that stuff in the bonus article that I did talk about earlier in this video. But we do still have some other Pokemon search cards in the deck. We have 2 copies of Evolution Incense to find our evolution Pokemon, but we also have a copy of Ultra Ball in the deck too. So of course we have to discard 2 cards from our hand to play this, and we get any Pokemon out of the deck. So a lot of times this can kind of act as a 5th Quick Ball to ensure that you can always find a Palkia V on the first turn of the game, or it can sometimes act as your 3rd Evolution Incense too. And then from there, we also have 1 copy of the new Hisuian Heavy Ball in the deck. This is a new item card that allows you to search your prize cards for a basic Pokemon and put it in your hand. Then you shuffle Hisuian Heavy Ball into your prize cards. So we do have a couple of important 1-ups in this deck, like the Manaphy and also our Radiant Greninja. So if we are going at something like a Rapid Strike Urshifu and we really want to make sure our bench is protected and we prized our Manaphy, no worries, we can search this thing out with either Irida or our Drizzile line and make sure we can get that thing into play ASAP. We have 2 copies of Scoop Up Net in the deck. This is going to be mainly to reuse our single prize Pokemon, most notably our Inteleon line. Being able to pick up maybe a Drizzile, throw it back down on our Sobble is definitely good. And also this does work with Radiant Greninja if I do understand this correctly. If you've already used Radiant Greninja's ability, you can Scoop Up Net, throw it back down, and discard another energy to draw another 2 cards. And then from there, our only other retreating method that we're going to have in the deck is going to be a copy of Escape Rope. So of course, we switch our active with a bench Pokemon, and then our opponent does the same. We have 2 copies of Capacious Bucket in the deck to find our basic water energy. It's definitely going to be very important, just because normally our copies of Drizzile and Irida aren't going to be able to search energy out of deck, so we need item-based forms. at getting those energies out of deck with those cards. We also have a copy of Echoing Horn in the deck, so we get to put a basic Pokemon from our opponent's discard onto their bench, which of course we definitely want with a deck like Palkia, which is reliant on your opponent's bench to fuel its attacks. Sometimes your opponent is going to try to play around your attack and keep your damage output low, and Echoing Horn is really going to help in those specific situations. And to round out our trainer cards, we do have a couple of Pokemon tools. Of course, we have 2 copies of Choice Belt in the deck, just to bump up our damage output a little bit more against Pokemon V. But then we also have 1 copy of Big Charm in the deck as well, to give ourselves a little bit more HP. Especially against like opposing Palkia VSTAR decks. This is going to put your Palkia out of range of those big one-hit KOs if you do have a full bench, and sometimes can also be useful just to slap down on a regular Palkia V to make sure it doesn't die on the next turn while you're still trying to get set up. And then from there, we have 7 basic water energies to round out our deck list. So definitely not a big number by any stretch of imagination, but you do have to remember we also have those 2 copies of Capacious Bucket, which gives us effectively 9 outs to energy. And then between cards like Training Court, Melanie, and then of course the V-Star power on our Origin Forme Palkia VSTAR, we can recycle these energies sort of as needed throughout the course of a game. So that's going to be where I'm at right now with Origin Forme Palkia VSTAR. I do like a lot of what's here already, but I do think there's a few different ways you could take this deck. Even though I am going sort of heavy on the Irida card right now, I do think you could build this deck with a lower count or even without it at all, as we've seen with decks like Suicune and Ice Rider. But on the flip side too, I think Irida really does enable a lot of really cool plays with some cards there in the format. So again, if you want to check out some of the other card inclusions that are on my short list to include in Palkia VSTAR, I will have a link down below in the description to that bonus article if you want to help support the channel and get some cool extra content in the process. But with that being said, guys, I hope you did enjoy this look at Palkia VSTAR today, and I want to hear from you. Let me know down below in the comment section, what do you think about this deck list? And are there any cards that you think should make an appearance in this list? But as always, if you do want to show your support for the channel, like I mentioned, you can become a patron, or on the flip side, you can also pick up some merch at rarecandytcg.com. Links to everything will be down below in the description. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.